There are women who possess a peculiar power. They need not utter a sound, nor flaunt their power, and never seek to draw attention to themselves. Yet, merely their presence transforms the very air around them. The boisterous suddenly fall silent, and those cloaked in falsity are struck by a profound, restless unease. It is not that they threaten, nor that they appear dangerous, but rather, their profound stillness acts as a spiritual mirror, compelling those before them to glimpse the very shadow selves they desperately try to deny. Now, dare to listen to your own intuition. Have you ever felt you could see through a person's true nature at first sight, before they'd uttered a single word? Has your presence ever, without obvious cause, made others distance themselves or ignited long-suppressed emotions within them? And herein lies the crux. This is not mere sensitivity, but the hallmark of a rare spiritual power, a power Carl Jung called a great gift, yet one that carries a dark warning you must heed to protect yourself. 1. The aura of silence, the unspoken magnetism. Have you ever experienced this moment, standing in a crowded room, surrounded by lively conversations, laughter, background music, and stories being told, yet somehow, an invisible force occasionally draws people's eyes toward you? You don't say much. You don't try to attract attention. You might even be tucked away in a corner. But somehow, your presence always brings about a strange feeling. Half curiosity, half caution, both admiration and distance. For years, you may have wondered whether this came from your appearance, the way you dress, or some unique trait you unconsciously possess. But when you reflect on all the roles you've played in life, a mother, a partner, a colleague, and then suddenly step out of those roles, a quiet question emerges. Who am I when I am no longer someone to anyone? Many people go through half their lives in seemingly irreplaceable roles. Then suddenly, when the children are grown, when an old marriage has ended, or when a once fulfilling career fades into obscurity, a quiet sense of loneliness sets in. On the outside, you might be very competent, once respected by an entire group, once a pillar of support for many. But deep down, the fear of being forgotten always lurks. If no one needs me anymore, do I still exist? Strangely, at the same time, you also realize that even when you are overlooked in familiar relationships, you possess a subtle difference that even you can't fully explain. Sometimes just a look, a nod, or your silent presence is enough to put someone at ease, or, on the contrary, leave them feeling unsettled. Maybe you dislike noisy places, cherish quiet, and love afternoons spent alone. Yet people still come to you, confiding secrets they've never shared with anyone else. At times, you become the person those in turmoil or pain seek out, not because you have magical advice, but simply because being near you, they feel safe to be themselves. You've often found yourself as the safe harbor for lost souls. Everyone needs a little peace, and you, like a mirror that emits no blinding light, are strong enough to reveal the hidden truths of others. If you've had those experiences, try stopping for a moment and ask yourself, where does this silent magnetism truly come from? Carl Jung, who devoted his life to delving into the unconscious layers of the human mind, analyzed this phenomenon very clearly. According to Jung, there are individuals, especially those who have been through much and weathered many inner storms, who possess a special kind of energy. He called it projection. We unconsciously project onto others the parts of ourselves we haven't yet acknowledged or dared to face, and those who hold a quiet, profound energy often become a mirror for countless dreams, desires, and even fears of others. That's why some people, upon meeting you, suddenly want to pour out their hearts, others become hesitant, and some may even fear you for reasons they don't understand. In such moments, you may become a goddess in one person's eyes, a distant mystery to another, or even get labeled with roles you never chose, like the perfect archetype, or someone simply too hard to figure out. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." When you appear in someone's life, it is not just a simple presence, but an invisible chemical reaction, where they can see the hidden part of themselves through you. If someone carries many wounds, they will find you dangerous. If they long for healing, they will find you safe. If they are searching for truth, they will find you unexpectedly fascinating. But however they perceive you, the truth is that you are not responsible for all those things. You are simply a quiet, shining mirror. That is the gift that life, or the universe, or God, depending on each person's faith, has placed in your hands, not as a punishment, but to prepare you for a journey of self-recognition, to challenge you to stand firm amid all the gazes, the judgments, the sometimes excessive admiration, or the kind of isolation that is not easily expressed. Let me tell you about Maya Lin, the architect who designed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, one of the most controversial monuments in modern American history. At only 21 years old, Maya Lin surpassed hundreds of older, established competitors to win. She did not make grand speeches, nor did she build a towering monument as was tradition, but instead designed a long, black stone wall, quietly lying beneath the Earth's surface, where everyone must bow down to read the names of the fallen. There was a lot of opposition. Many people considered it a cold and incomprehensible design. But over the years, millions have come to that wall, to cry, to reflect, and to be healed. Maya Lin once said, "I had to trust my intuition and let the design speak for itself." Her presence, like her work, did not need many words, yet had the power to touch the hearts of millions, far beyond any superficial standard. Or consider composer Max Richter, who created On the Nature of Daylight, a piece made up of simple chords, with no climax, no showiness, but chosen as the soundtrack for countless films about memory, loss, and returning home, because it resonates with the deepest layers of human feeling, the kind rarely spoken aloud. Richter once shared, "Sometimes, the quietest music can be the most powerful, because it gives us space to feel ourselves. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be a famous architect. You can also be someone who quietly brings peace to others, simply by being present." What is the price of that gift? It is the burden of projection itself. When people idolize you, they might love you to the point of idealization, or fear you, or dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with your actions. You are easily subject to expectations, to comparisons, and even to isolation, simply because no one truly wants to see the very ordinary human side of you. Sometimes you must remind yourself, I also have the right to be vulnerable. I can be imperfect. Jung also once reminded us, I am not what happened to me. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. You are not what others imagine you to be. You have the right to choose to live true to yourself, not to turn yourself into a mirror for others' fears or desires to possess. Try giving yourself 1 minute each day to ask, today, did I live authentically with myself? Am I limiting myself within the expectations of others? You can gently practice setting boundaries, saying no when you are tired, or allowing yourself to feel joy, sorrow, or quietness without explanation. Sometimes, you only need to remind yourself, I am present. And that is enough. When you can master that silent magnetism, you will no longer fear being idealized by others, nor feel sad when someone turns their back on you, because you understand, true radiance is not meant to hide the darkness, but to illuminate the true human within yourself. Above all, remember, you may not say a word, you may only stand in the corner of a room, but your very existence is already an inspiration for someone else to find the courage to look back at themselves. The silent aura is the beginning of a journey of self-awakening, where you learn to love yourself amid a world full of judgment. And then, when you accept to stand still in both your own light and darkness, you will start to realize, behind that quiet appearance is a whole world waiting for you to discover, a place where each new sign is not only a gift, but also a key to unlocking the deepest part of your being. 2. The paradox of loneliness amid connection. Think back to the moment you sat in a room filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses ringing out, golden lights casting a glow on every familiar face. Friends, colleagues, even family, but among it all, there is a strange emptiness that no one else notices. You listen to every story, share in the laughter, nod, encourage, ask questions, and always fulfill the role of friend, mother, or trusted colleague that everyone can rely on. Yet deep inside, there is a loneliness that is not easily named. You know everyone's hidden corners. You can easily sense the sadness behind a joke, notice the insecurity in eyes that seem so strong. But when night falls, as the sounds fade away, the emptiness returns, bigger than any conversation you have ever had. Perhaps you have lost someone, gone through a broken marriage, or simply your children have grown up and you are no longer needed as before. Every morning you wake up, you find yourself still surrounded by many people, yet there is no one who truly wants to listen to your innermost feelings. No one who makes you feel truly seen. You belong everywhere, but at the same time, nowhere at all. In moments like this, you may ask yourself, am I the only one who feels this way? Is there something wrong with me? To feel lonely, even in a crowd? That paradox seems to become more familiar after you have gone through major upheavals, a breakup, the passing of a loved one, the end of a job, a milestone that someone calls a crisis. You once hoped, once loved wholeheartedly, once gave your all for something. And now, as everything quiets down, you feel a strange emptiness returning to your heart. Others call you strong, but only you know there are nights when you wake up, heavy-hearted, feeling that no one truly understands you. I understand everyone, but no one understands me. That sentence lingers unspoken, always quietly echoing in your mind. You long for a place where you truly belong, where you don't have to explain who you are, don't have to hide old wounds, don't have to pretend to be strong just to stay within a social circle. You wish you could find someone, or at least a small group, who is also searching for their own answers, who is ready to listen to your strange dreams, your old pains, your yearning to live authentically without judgment, without dismissal, without avoidance. And then you realize, this very feeling is what has led you to start the journey inward. You begin to read more, seek out quiet spaces, try writing in a journal, listen to podcasts, or join self-development groups. Maybe at first, you are hesitant, wondering if you are too deep compared to everyone else, wondering if you are making too much of something that everyone experiences but never complains about. But deep down, you know you need healing, not just to stop feeling lonely, but so that you can love yourself again, or open your heart to a new relationship, whether friendship or love. You hope to escape this feeling not by merging into the crowd, but by finding your true self, being yourself without fear of being left behind. Carl Jung once delved deeply into the territory of inner paradox, and it was he who named this archetype, the wise woman. This woman is not loud, not quick to share, yet she sees through the true nature of people, is sensitive to the most subtle emotions, has the ability to comfort, inspire, listen, and heal others. Yet for that very reason, she is placed in a strange position, sometimes almost like an outsider. Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. That is the loneliness of one who knows too much, feels too deeply, but cannot find anyone who is truly in harmony with her soul. That loneliness is not a sign of failure, nor is it because you are difficult or hard to please. It is both a gift and a challenge, reserved for those who are brave enough to look deep within, courageous enough to live authentically, even if the cost is sometimes being placed on the sidelines of former relationships." There is a story of poet and activist Maya Angelou who wrote, "I know why the caged bird sings," who admitted she could stand in a hall filled with hundreds of people, receive countless compliments, be flooded with attention, and yet still feel she was the only one there who did not truly belong. Angelou once recounted her years living abroad when she faced persistent loneliness, and it was that very feeling that became the motivation for her to write, to pour her heart into every page, to allow herself to live truly, and in doing so, she inspired millions of people to feel less alone in their own journey to find identity. Or consider psychologist Jean Baker Miller, founder of relational cultural theory, who has pointed out through many studies that the more women mature, the more they yearn for deep connections, and the easier it is for them to fall into the state of loneliness in connection, especially after going through upheavals, loss, or having to start over. Miller discovered that not everyone with many friends is happy. What matters is finding relationships that dare to face the truth together, even the imperfect parts. The greatest paradox lies here. The more you mature, the deeper you go into your own soul, the less you want to say social niceties, the less you can stand shallow conversations, and then you start to wonder, is there anyone who speaks the same language as you? You may sometimes think you are different, sometimes feel the world is too shallow, sometimes feel a pang when seeing others happy with things you simply cannot feel. Yet it is that very feeling which invites you to return to yourself, is the map for your journey to find a kindred community. However small, however slow, but deep enough that you don't have to hide your true emotions. What is the lesson here? That loneliness is not the enemy, but the companion of maturity. You need to dare to look straight at loneliness, to recognize that it is an inevitable part of the process of awakening the self. The true meaning of darkness is not to bury those feelings, but to dare to shine a light on them, to understand yourself better, to know that you are not alone, not being punished, but are simply being prepared for a new connection, one that is deep and truly fitting for your soul. When you accept this, you will gradually let go of the expectation to always belong. Learn to find joy in moments alone, and learn to value every moment you meet someone who speaks the same language. Isodidno. If you are in this stage, try writing down the names of people with whom you feel safe being your true self, even if it's just one or two people. Don't hesitate to start deeper conversations. Try opening up to someone you trust, or join a small group with shared interests in self-development, art, spirituality, or anything that makes you feel truly alive. Remember that a small, quality community can bring more meaning than hundreds of superficial relationships. Every day, spend time dialoguing with yourself, writing in your journal, or simply taking a walk alone to listen to your inner voice. The feeling of peace will grow as you stop chasing shallow connections and only keep for yourself the truly meaningful bonds. And when you have dared to walk through the darkness of that loneliness, you will discover something miraculous. That loneliness is no longer an abyss that swallows you, but a necessary silence for you to regenerate, for your intuition to awaken, for you to perceive things that others cannot. That is also the moment when you touch the next sign, where the gift of powerful intuition appears like a compass, guiding you closer to the journey of truly becoming yourself. 3. Powerful intuition, a dangerous gift. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a lively conversation, with everyone laughing and chatting, yet suddenly, a strange feeling rises within you? You notice the quiet sadness in someone's eyes, even as they're speaking positively. Sometimes, just from hearing a single sentence or catching a fleeting gesture, you instantly know who is sincere and who is hiding something. There are times when you sense beforehand that something is about to happen, a breakup, a major change, or some bad news. And when it finally arrives, you're not surprised, only weary from facing a truth that others aren't ready to accept. You may have wondered, why do I always feel so much? Why can't I just live more lightly, more carefree like everyone else? Perhaps those around you have said you're too sensitive, too suspicious, or overthinking, but only you know that these are not unfounded worries. It is your intuition speaking a deep part of you that cannot be deceived, no matter how hard someone tries to conceal the truth. On the journey to truly become yourself, a powerful intuition is both a blessing and a challenge. You want to live authentically, to understand and protect yourself, to help others see what they're avoiding. Yet alongside that, you're easily overwhelmed by emotion, quickly exhausted when dealing with negative people, and may even fall into self-isolation simply because you don't want to absorb more of the world's chaotic energy. Sometimes, you choose silence about what you see, just to avoid being the odd one out in others' eyes. But being silent for too long means you bottle up sorrow, and a growing sense of alienation from yourself builds up, like a nameless shadow, quietly covering your soul. Carl Jung devoted his life to exploring the deepest layers of the mind. He believed that intuition is a perception that does not go by way of the intellect or the traditional senses, but comes from the depths of the unconscious, as if your soul has a sixth sense, always connected to a current of information that transcends language, action, and even time. Jung wrote, "Intuition gives outlook and insight. It revels in the garden of magical possibilities as if they were real. Intuition is a door to a hidden world where you can sense things before they happen, read the intentions of others before they admit them. For this reason, those with strong intuition are often like antennas, picking up every signal, good and bad, positive and negative, light and dark. If you do not learn to control this gift, it can easily become a source of anxiety, confusion, and even a heavy burden. Remember, intuition is not just about predicting bad things. It is also the ability to heal, to connect, to help you feel deeply and create genuine bonds with others. But if you do not know how to set boundaries, you become the one carrying the emotions of the entire world. You're easily drawn into toxic relationships simply because you want to help, or you're worn out by negative stories. Sometimes, you see truths no one else wants to face, and that makes you a target of suspicion, distance, or even ostracism in environments that value surface appearances above all else. A prime example is Shonda Rhimes, the renowned screenwriter behind blockbuster television series, who has spoken about her deep ability to sense the atmosphere around her, knowing instinctively when to remain silent and when to speak up. Rhimes shared that there were moments she felt suffocated during meetings, simply because she could pick up on waves of tension that no one dared mention, and she had to learn to distinguish which emotions were truly her own and which belonged to others, so as not to be swept away. She once said, "My gut always knows, even when my mind is uncertain, but I've learned the hard way that not every truth is meant to be spoken aloud." That very experience made Rhimes an exquisitely sensitive creator, but it also meant she faced significant inner pressure. Another example is Sarah Blakely, founder and CEO of Spanx. Since childhood, Blakely has shared that she had the ability to sense when someone isn't being genuine, or know when a deal was doomed to fail, even when everything on the surface appeared fine. Blakely used that intuition to guide both big and small decisions throughout her career, often going against all expert advice, and that's how she was able to build her own business empire. However, Blakely also admitted that, over time, she needed to train herself to balance it. "Learning to trust my intuition was my superpower, but learning when to share it and when to hold it back saved my energy and my peace." The lesson here isn't that you should shut your heart or ignore your intuition. The true meaning of this gift is to listen, to trust in your deep feelings, but also to learn how to set boundaries, so you don't drown in the ocean of other people's emotions. This is not selfishness, but a necessary step toward maturity, so that you can protect yourself while still helping others with clarity, at the right time, in the right way. Whenever your intuition speaks, try asking, "Is this feeling truly mine, or am I just picking it up from someone else?" If you feel exhausted after being around someone, allow yourself to step back and take some private space to recharge. If you sense a truth others aren't ready to hear, carefully consider when, where, and how to share it in order not to cause unnecessary hurt. Here's a simple exercise. Spend a few minutes each day sitting quietly, eyes closed, with your hand on your chest. When a strong emotion appears, anxiety, insecurity, anger, or joy, ask yourself, is this feeling really mine? Where does it come from? What is it trying to tell me? With regular practice, you'll gradually learn to distinguish your true intuition from baseless anxieties. At the same time, practice saying no to situations or people that drain your energy, even if it sometimes brings you face to face with guilt. You may be surprised to find that the more you protect your inner boundaries, the more clearly you experience your intuition as a genuine strength, not a burden, but a source of energy that helps you live with awareness. Choose the right people, the right work, the right moments. Jung once wrote, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Your journey is not about finding some absolute right, but about learning to discern the true voice of your soul from the lost signals of the outer world. So, if you find yourself on this path, sensitive, powerfully intuitive, sometimes weary from knowing too much and feeling too deeply, remember, you are not alone. Don't rush to reject this gift. Instead, learn to cherish it, to regulate it, so it can lead you ever closer to your true self. When you know how to trust, but not let intuition overpower reason, you'll feel peace gradually return. And that's when you're ready to move on to the next challenge, where darkness is no longer something foreign, but becomes a companion that helps you recognize the true strength of your inner light. What are your thoughts on powerful intuition, a dangerous gift? How has intuition helped or challenged you in real life? Your experiences and insights could inspire someone who is searching for a way to understand and harness this strength. Please share your story or lesson in the comments. Together, we can further illuminate the mysteries of the inner world. 4. The shadow magnet. The effect of reflecting the dark side. Not everyone realizes why, among so many people, you are often the one who bears the strongest reactions: love, hate, admiration, resentment, sometimes simply from a quiet presence that never actively seeks to influence. There are days you feel like a magnet. Wherever you go, heavy moods, burdensome stories, whispers of jealousy, or even excessive praise seem drawn to you. You may have wondered, what have I done to be misunderstood, criticized, envied, or suddenly become the focal point of dramas I have nothing to do with? Sometimes, during a friendly conversation, a single unintentional comment is enough to make someone angry, or for no clear reason in a group, you find yourself isolated because people can't explain their feelings about you. More than once, you have become the dumping ground for the emotions of wounded souls who were never invited into your space. And there are moments you feel like you're walking on thin ice in your relationships, longing for peace, yet always on guard against the restless energies swirling around you. Behind it all, you simply yearn to live in peace, to be yourself, without having to explain why you seem to draw so many strangers, both good and bad. Perhaps you've been through toxic relationships, people who adored you at first, and then turned into critics, angry or controlling. Maybe you once put your full trust in someone, only to feel pain when that very person turned on you, gossiped, blamed, or projected traits onto you that you never possessed. You have wondered if there's something wrong or too different about you, because just by your presence, the bright and dark sides of others seem to surface, sometimes so fiercely that you're left stunned and defenseless. Carl Jung described this phenomenon with the concept of the shadow side of the psyche. According to Jung, everyone has a shadow, a collection of emotions, conflicts, fears, and desires that they do not wish to acknowledge. When someone is not yet mature enough to face these things, they unconsciously project their shadow onto others, especially those with strong energy or a distinctive presence. You, the one who has the capacity to illuminate or awaken hidden emotional layers, become a wordless mirror. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This means that the intense reactions, unexplained anger, or even the inexplicable fascination that others feel toward you are, in reality, reminders of the things they have yet to admit or dare to see within themselves. Living with this effect, you can easily fall into a state of confusion, not knowing where your boundaries end and others begin, not knowing how much emotional responsibility you should carry for those who continually come to you, and not knowing whether to feel happy or uneasy about excessive admiration, because behind it, more often than not, lies disappointment or sudden withdrawal. The most painful thing is that many times you are labeled as cold, distant, or even dangerous, simply because others cannot handle the truth they see reflected through you. Many people choose to attack, avoid, or even make up stories about you as a defense mechanism against the shadow side they don't want to face. But remember, you are not the cause of every drama, every wound, or every negative emotion around you. When you understand the shadow mechanism, you'll realize most people's reactions are really their own inner struggles, not a judgment of your value. Recognizing this is not easy, especially when you're used to being the one who endures, the place where others unload their anger, disappointment, and insecurity. However, you are the only one who has the right to choose whether or not to accompany those energies, whether or not to keep allowing yourself to be swept up in that spiral. Take the example of actress Sandra Oh, who has spoken about often being assigned the role of the cold, distant woman, even though, in real life, she is deeply sensitive and humorous. Sandra has shared that her difference in energy has drawn both wonderful friends and frequent misunderstandings or nameless conflicts. It was through her role in Killing Eve that Sandra learned to accept she cannot please everyone, nor should she sacrifice her real self just to be accepted by the crowd. She once said, I realized I'm not responsible for the projections others put on me. My job is to hold my own space, to honor who I am, not who they need me to be. Another example is Rick Rubin, the legendary music producer known as the Wizard behind the success of many major artists. Rick is always a magnet for artists who are lost, directionless, or carrying unresolved shadows. Rubin not only helps them realize their potential, but also forces them to confront their darkness, insecurities, and fear of failure. For this reason, not everyone likes or can tolerate Rick Rubin. Some people deeply admire him, others openly dislike him. Rick once said, "You are either drawn to my energy or repelled by it. I don't try to change that. It's part of the process." That is a lesson in not taking on others' shadows as your own burden. The message of transformation here is, you need to understand that living true to yourself means daring to shine a light on both the light and the shadow of the world around you. Being a magnet for strong emotions, both positive and negative, is a sign you have touched the deeper layer of human connection. Don't try to please everyone. And don't take on all negative feelings as your fault. When you know how to set boundaries, decline relationships that only pull you down, and choose who truly deserves to walk with you on your journey of growth, you'll find yourself lighter, more peaceful, and no longer afraid of others' darkness. A practical exercise for you. Whenever you feel negative energy approaching, ask yourself, is this my emotion, or does it belong to someone else? A planty, quote, a planty, quote, a planty, quote, a planty, quotey, quote, if it's someone else's, imagine you are putting on a protective cloak, only letting in what is truly needed. Write down the times you have been misunderstood, envied, or attacked for no reason, then tear them up, or burn them in a small ritual, to remind yourself that you have the right to filter energies and preserve your inner peace. At the same time, seek out small communities where you can truly be yourself, where all parts light and shadow are accepted without judgment. Ask yourself, if I was no longer afraid of being misunderstood, how would I live? Ask yourself. You'll realize that true strength doesn't lie in controlling what others think about you, but in mastering your own reactions, protecting your energy, and continuing to shine even when the shadows around you sometimes threaten to rise. That's the foundation for moving on to a new chapter where you learn to dance with both light and darkness, harmonize and transform yourself through every challenge life brings. 5. The dance between light and shadow, acceptance and transformation. Perhaps there are times when you look back on your life and tell yourself, I have lived many lives in one. Every scar, every wrinkle, every memory is a chapter of your story. Some chapters are full of love, others are shrouded in the darkness of loss, illness, betrayal, or upheavals you once thought you could never recover from. You have felt the pain of someone you love most leaving. You have lost your way after a long breakup. You have faced an illness that came without warning, or endured injustices and wounds that no one else could share with you. It seems that just as one pain passes, another arrives, making you wonder, why does all the suffering keep falling upon me? When will I finally find true peace? But you are also the one who does not easily surrender to adversity. When you fall, you know how to get up, sometimes even surprising yourself with your strength, a strength that appears just when all other doors seem to close. Those around you notice that you not only empathize with their sorrow, but you also have the ability to inspire them to rise, to look forward, even as your own heart still carries its scars. This sensitivity, depth, and resilience make many people seek you out for advice, to lean on whenever they face storms in their lives. Yet, there is a truth that sometimes you feel lost in the current of life, easily slipping into quiet melancholy, locking yourself in the shell of old memories, afraid that you are only reliving losses without finding their true meaning. Carl Jung, with his profound understanding of the human soul, emphasized that wholeness is not about becoming perfect, but about daring to accept and reconcile all opposing aspects within oneself. According to Jung, a mature soul is one that has danced with both light and shadow, that has crossed the land of suffering without denying or avoiding it, but knows how to transform it into depth and wisdom. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. True courage does not lie in erasing the wounds, but in daring to face them, to call them by their names, and to turn them into new motivation. Pain is not a punishment, but a silent teacher, helping you reach layers of meaning that only real experience can teach. This transformation is not a straight path, but a continuous dance between the bright areas, where you feel proud, steady, and full of inspiration, and the dark areas, where you find yourself weak, exhausted, in need of rest, or wanting nothing more than to cry your heart out. There have been days when you've felt like an undefeatable warrior, but there are also times when just a tiny memory can tighten your chest, making you want to close the door and retreat into your own private darkness to heal. These feelings are neither wrong nor weak. They simply prove that you are someone who has lived truly, loved deeply, suffered genuinely, and grown up enough to no longer fear the dark. Take, for example, actress Viola Davis, who shared that throughout her childhood, she grew up in poverty, endured discrimination and violence, and sometimes didn't even have enough to eat. But instead of letting those memories become chains, she turned them into a resilient energy, pushing herself to rise up, to live fully in every role, and to be unafraid of failure. Davis once said, "I own my story, even the parts I wish I could erase." By daring to accept and own both her light and her shadow, she has become a symbol of inspiration for millions of women around the world. Another example is writer Glennon Doyle, who went through addiction, a broken marriage, and depression. Instead of hiding those dark parts of her life, Doyle chose to write them all out, facing the darkness head-on, to find the light for herself and for others in similar circumstances. In her book, Untamed, Glennon Doyle shares, "The braver I am, the luckier I get." The braver she was in facing her own shadows, the more willing she became to dance with pain, and the more she found luck, true companions, and, most importantly, her own self, growing through adversity. If there's a message of transformation here, it's that every hardship, every wound carries within it the seed of awakening. Don't be quick to deny or reject your past, and don't wait for all pain to disappear before you allow yourself to live fully. The truth is, it's this very dance between light and shadow that gives you your depth, your resilience, and that indescribable allure. That's why you handle crises better than others, why you are both sensitive and strong, why you're no longer afraid of pain, only afraid of living without understanding your own meaning. A practical exercise for you. Take time to write about the painful events and losses in your life, but instead of just describing the pain, ask yourself, what did I learn from that? Who have I become because of that experience? See each wound as a point touched by light, a reminder of your bravery, your capacity to rise. Or, if you're creative, try drawing a map of your life using two contrasting colors. One side for the bright areas, success, joy, happiness, and the other for the dark zones, loss, wounds, sadness. Then look, where are you dancing on that map, and how do you choose your next steps? The feeling you will have when doing this is not self-pity, but a deep gratitude for yourself. You will realize that everything you have been through has become the very material shaping the best version of you today. Once you are brave enough to walk through the darkness, you will not only find the light, but also understand what that light truly means for yourself and for those who are searching for inspiration from you. And so, as you are ready to continue this dance, you will see that every day is a new opportunity to grow, to self-heal, to transform pain into wisdom, to use your very own story to light the way for others. After each of these steps, you will begin to hear that small voice inside yourself, the voice that was once so faint, but now grows stronger and stronger, urging you to live more authentically, to walk even more bravely on the path to becoming yourself. That is also when you realize, deep beneath this dance between light and darkness, there is an inner strength waiting to be revealed, a steadfast, unwavering voice ready to guide you further along this journey. Have you ever experienced the dance between light and darkness within yourself? What helped you accept, overcome, and transform pain into strength? Please share your feelings, stories, or personal lessons about this journey in the comments section. Who knows, your honest sharing might become a source of encouragement for someone else who is also searching for a way to step out of the darkness. 6. The steadfast inner voice. Living true to yourself. There are days when you suddenly realize you have passed through so many seasons of change without truly living for yourself. For years, you may have been the peacemaker in every conflict, the shoulder for loved ones to lean on, the one who carries the emotions and responsibilities of others just to keep everyone happy, just to maintain the peace. You even sacrificed your own desires, swallowed countless no's, hid your true feelings, all to avoid disappointing anyone. Yet one morning, you look at yourself in the mirror and see a familiar face that suddenly feels so distant. Who am I? What truly makes me happy? That question echoes from the deepest place within you. Impossible to be drowned out by any external advice. Perhaps you once lived according to your parents' wishes, afraid of hurting your children, remaining silent to keep a marriage stable, or endured career choices simply because you felt it was your duty. The more you mature, the more you feel the exhaustion of trying to please the whole world without any real connection to yourself. Sometimes, you crave to simply sit quietly in a dark room, just to hear your own inner voice whispering, not chasing the noise of society, not forcing a smile to hide your internal confusion. Outwardly, you are still strong, still know how to reassure everyone, but only you understand the price you pay for trading your true self for superficial peace. There are moments when you want to scream, to walk away, to live according to what you truly believe in. But the fear of being judged, being seen as selfish or too different, keeps you from moving. Carl Jung considered the inner voice the greatest source of spiritual growth, the starting point of individuation, the journey where a person dares to shed roles, to cast off societal expectations, and become the unique version of themselves. He called it the soul's compass, a guide that never errs, no matter how loud the external noise tries to drown it out. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." True freedom does not come from pleasing everyone, but from courageously listening to, respecting, and protecting your own true voice. For women who have endured immense pressure from society and family, that inner voice is often buried under countless silent compromises. They become masters at enduring, at adapting. But then, at a certain threshold, that long-held silence begins to transform into crisis. Losing emotional connection, feeling their life become bland, even suffering from persistent depression with no clear cause. The price of ignoring the call from within, as Jung warned, is a profound sense of being lost, a wound of the soul that can only be healed by acting honestly with yourself, not to punish you, but to prepare you for a new stage of maturity, where you learn to recognize, trust, and follow that voice, whether the world agrees or not. Let's take a look at the journey of Michelle Obama, who once shared about the years spent living under the shadow of various roles: daughter, wife, mother, first lady, and the sense of being lost when all of society's expectations weighed on her shoulders. Michelle admitted that it was only when she dared to ask, "What do I want?" that she began to reclaim her true identity, started to write, to speak out, and to choose projects that truly resonated with her inner values, instead of simply chasing responsibility. She once said, "Your story is what you have, what you will always have. It is something to own." The journey back to her inner voice helped Michelle Obama inspire millions of women not through empty slogans, but through her steadfastness, her ability to set boundaries, and her readiness to say no when necessary. Another example comes from Brené Brown, a renowned researcher on vulnerability and courage. Brené once faced fierce criticism when she decided to make her research on personal emotions public, going against the grain of rigid academic tradition. It was her powerful inner voice urging her to continue on her own path, despite public opinion, that helped Brené become a globally influential voice for authenticity and healing. She once said, "Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen." Every time you dare to speak your truth and live authentically, you take a step closer to that profound freedom where no fear or judgment can shake you. The biggest transformational message here is, living true to yourself is not an easy journey, nor is it a path celebrated at every stage. It is a continuous choice between superficial peace and inner tranquility, between the voice of the crowd and your own call, daring to set boundaries, daring to say no without guilt, daring to choose personal values even when criticized. These are the greatest proofs of maturity. No one is born strong, but every time you stand up for yourself, you add another sturdy layer to your soul's fortress. A small practice to begin. Start by journaling your emotions every day, distinguishing between what truly belongs to you and what is imposed by outside expectations. Ask yourself questions like, what makes me happy? What feels inauthentic? Practice saying no to something small, a meeting you don't enjoy, a task that no longer matters, and observe your own feelings. Gradually build your confidence to set boundaries, to protect your time and personal space. Even when others don't understand or object, meditation, journaling, or simply quiet moments throughout the day can be the doorway that brings you back to your true voice. What will you feel when you do this? At first, it might be unease, guilt, or the fear of being left behind. But gradually, a sense of lightness and freedom will emerge, helping you stand firm amidst social pressure. Stop chasing roles. Stop forcing yourself to be the peacemaker, and simply be yourself whole, worthy, and happy. Once you've made it this far, you'll see that your inner voice is not just a guide, but a silent strength that lets you live each day fully. And when you're steady with yourself, brave enough to defend your personal boundaries, you'll realize you're ready to face the final great challenge, the burden of transformation, a journey not only for yourself but also an inspiration for those seeking light in the darkness of their own lives. 7. The burden of transformation. Chosen to awaken the world, there are those who go through life always feeling that they must face heavier challenges, never quite understanding why crises, changes, and even pains that seem insurmountable keep finding their way to them. Many times you may have asked yourself, why am I always the one called upon whenever someone needs help? Or, why do all the major events in my family, work, or community always seem to land on my shoulders? You look back and realize that you've rarely experienced a long stretch of peace. One period ends, only for another to begin. Times when you must rise up for loved ones, resolve family issues, pull friends out of crises, inspire colleagues, or quietly listen and guide a group lost in despair. On the outside, many people see you as strong, capable, someone who heals and motivates, a natural guide in every difficult situation. But only you know that sometimes you're so exhausted you can barely breathe, that there are nights you cry quietly to yourself, with no one knowing. Because you think, if I fall apart, who will carry everything for everyone else? You have longed to live lightly, without shouldering so much responsibility, wishing simply to be yourself, to be carefree and free like everyone else. There are moments when the loneliness of the strong grows so heavy you feel abandoned, sometimes even wondering, was I chosen? Or am I just a tool of fate? Somewhere deep inside, you yearn for a bigger explanation for all you've endured. In the depths of psychology, Carl Jung described those with powerful, transformative energy as instruments of awakening and change. Jung believed that their lives are seldom smooth, because the universe chooses them to become the bringers of transformation for groups, families, or communities. Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. True awakening only arrives after you have faced and walked through a series of wounds, crises, and challenges. Each time, your soul is tempered to become deeper, more resilient, expanding its capacity for endurance and also for love and empathy for others. Living with a great mission, you may often find yourself giving until you're empty. Many people come to you for advice, for motivation, to share their pain, but few truly understand or are willing to stay when you're tired or in need of healing yourself. The price of being the enlightened one in everyday life is the feeling that your responsibilities always outweigh your own self. The times when you become lost in your role, losing touch with your true feelings, sometimes forgetting that you, too, deserve to receive, to be loved, to be comforted, and to be vulnerable like anyone else. Take the example of Elizabeth Gilbert, author of Eat, Pray, Love. Gilbert has openly shared about the times she repeatedly fell into personal crisis, felt drained, living among countless roles yet unable to find her true self. Only when she dared to face her own pain and realized that her mission was not just to heal others but also to heal herself, did Gilbert truly experience balance. She once said, "Embrace the glorious mess that you are." It was this acceptance of imperfection, the courage to set boundaries, the willingness to pause and care for herself, that allowed her to continue shining without being burned out by the fire of responsibility. Another example comes from social activist Bryan Stevenson, the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, a tireless lawyer who has fought for justice for decades. Stevenson doesn't just inspire. He's someone who has changed the entire system with his inner strength, unwavering resilience, and deep compassion. Stevenson once admitted, "The true measure of our character is how we treat the poor, the disfavored, the accused, the incarcerated, and the condemned." But he also emphasized that those who dedicate themselves to the community must also know how to care for themselves, to maintain balance between giving and receiving in order to go the distance without breaking. The message of transformation for you is this: you do not have to force yourself to be the savior of the world. At all times, everywhere. The burden of transformation can only become a meaningful mission when you take care of yourself, build boundaries, and dare to receive what you deserve. Every challenge that comes your way is not meant to punish you, but to prepare your soul for a broader impact. But you are also the most important person in this journey. Being chosen to awaken the world does not mean you have to lose yourself along the way. Try allowing yourself to rest without feeling guilty, learning to ask for help, and building truly balanced give and take relationships, even if only for small moments. Write down what you have done for others, and then ask yourself, what have I done for myself today? Start with the smallest things: meditation, taking a walk, reading a book, or simply turning off your phone for one evening to indulge your soul. Only when you know how to care for yourself can you give love in a true sense without burning out, without feeling that your role is a burden. What feeling will you gain when you practice this? It is a deep peace, an inner sense of enough, the safety of knowing you are still fulfilling a great mission without having to sacrifice all your joy and personal vitality. That way, you become a source of lasting inspiration, a true guide, not because you are the strongest, but because you dared to find balance and heal yourself first. Finally, ask yourself, if I were allowed to live a truly full life, not just to serve but also to enjoy, what would I choose? That is when you realize the journey of transformation is not just a burden, but also a privilege. When you are brave enough to care for yourself, you not only awaken your own spirit, but also shine that light for every soul who is lost, a gentle awakening. Not ostentatious, but strong enough to change the world one day at a time, starting with yourself. Have you ever felt chosen to shoulder and inspire others? How has this journey of transformation changed you? Please share your story or the challenges and motivations you've experienced around the topic, the burden of transformation, in the comments. Maybe your very experience will empower someone who is on their own path to inner awakening. The rewilding of joy. When I ask you, when was the last time you laughed so hard that tears streamed down your face? You might have to search long and deep in your memory, reaching back to some childhood moment or a random burst of joy. So many of us, especially after we've lived through losses, healed, grown, and become strong, discover there's a quiet emptiness within. The emptiness of spontaneous joy, of simple happiness that needs no purpose, no one else's approval. Maybe you've mastered peace, learned to balance light and shadow, set boundaries, forgive, and love. Yet joy, not the safe kind that comes after surviving storms, but wild, unfiltered joy, like a child with no worries, somehow still feels like a luxury. The truth is, many people in midlife walk through the darkness only to settle into a state of calm, steady, but somewhat dull existence. Life no longer brings emotional tempests, but it also lacks sparkle, excitement, anticipation. Does growing up mean trading away joy? Someone may quietly wonder. But here's the thing. True maturity isn't about controlling everything. It's about letting yourself relax enough to feel joy again, even for just a day, a moment. Carl Jung once wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." It's that vital will to live, that playful instinct, that restless drive to explore, which keeps the soul forever young. Take a look at Richard Branson's journey, a billionaire, an adventurer in his 70s, still skydiving, scuba diving, doing extreme sports, and starting new ventures just to feel alive. Branson has shared that only when he dared to try things no one expected of him at his age did he truly feel youthful energy return, no longer relying on titles or external validation. Or Oprah Winfrey, after turning 60, she took up dancing, enrolled in art classes, went on spontaneous trips. Oprah said, "I realized joy was not in achievement, but in play, in surprise, in freedom to just be." Science, too, shows that new, playful, and unexpected experiences trigger dopamine naturally, rejuvenate the brain, soothe negative emotions, and boost mental health. Dr. Laura Carstensen, Stanford, in her research on the psychology of aging, found that non-functional fun experiences are the key to sustained optimism and a lower risk of depression after 50. So, what's the lesson here? When you're mature enough to face your darkness, when you know how to listen and heal, give yourself permission to rewild your joy. Create a bucket list of things you've never dared to try, from art classes, dancing, hiking, learning a new instrument, to simply treating yourself to a morning with nothing to do but enjoy the moment. Try a plan-free day, an adventure out of your comfort zone, a spontaneous dinner with old friends, a short getaway for no reason at all. Every little action is a spark for your pure dopamine field. A reminder that you live not just to heal, but to play, to laugh, to explore, and to grow all over again. Are you ready to ask yourself, if I were allowed to be joyful today, what wild thing would I do? For here. Joyful, and if you dare to step beyond that safe edge, you'll see after darkness, the light is not just peace, but laughter, vibrant curiosity, and the simple happiness of being your freest, truest self, crafting a tribe of purpose. There comes a time in life when you no longer want to blend in at all costs. The feeling of being lost in the crowd becomes all too familiar. Small talk leaves you emptier, and half-hearted relationships simply cannot reach your soul. After the journey of self-discovery, healing, and inner growth, you start to crave something greater. The building of a community, a truly small but profound tribe, where you can be yourself and, together with kindred spirits, create value for the world. It doesn't have to be a big group, just a few people are enough. As long as you are connected by sincerity, maturity, and a shared purpose. I have often heard middle-aged women confide, "It's time I stopped trying to fit in with those who don't really understand me, and started creating my own community, even if it's just 3 or 5 people walking the same path together." That feeling is both an instinctual need and the result of being fed up with shallow connections that never go beyond greetings or fleeting empathy. You want a chosen family, where everyone is allowed to live authentically, to support and grow together, to rise above the barriers of the past, and to serve something greater than themselves. This is nothing new. Across major cities, women's circles, second-act communities are springing up more and more. These are spaces where middle-aged women learn together, create art, share life experience, or organize volunteer activities. For example, in Portland, the Second Spring group consists of 6 women, each having gone through loss, divorce, or retirement, coming together for book readings and life sharing, eventually expanding into projects teaching life skills to younger women. They heal themselves and also spread that transformation to the wider community. Another example comes from the Artists After 50 community in Chicago. People who had worked in all kinds of professions, and only after turning 50, began to study painting, music, or photography. They do not come to compete, nor does anyone expect to become a professional artist. What they gain most is the sense of belonging to a small tribe, where every idea and feeling is listened to and respected. No one is alone when they create together, exhibit art together, sing in the park, cry together, and then laugh at an unfinished painting. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. True connection is the catalyst for all transformation." When you are brave enough to create your own tribe, no matter how small, you both heal yourself and open the door for others to find new meaning in their lives. So, what is the practical solution for you? Start with very small steps. Invite 1 or 2 kindred spirits to join a shared journey. Whether it's a book club, a meditation group, healthcare, or weekend volunteer sessions. Don't worry about size or form. The most important thing is that everyone can be themselves and grow together. If there's no group like this in your city, you can be the one to start it. A coffee invitation, a sharing session, a simple phone call. I'm thinking about starting a small group. Would you like to join me? Could be the beginning of a meaningful tribe. Remember, you are not alone on this path of service. When you become selective in your connections and build a just right group, you will feel the dopamine of companionship, of sharing, and of meaning bigger than yourself. Sometimes, a small tribe is the greatest motivation to help you get through the dark nights and light up your inner room together. No one has to carry all the pain or joy alone. Have you ever built a small tribe for yourself? What helped you find kindred spirits and create value together? Please share your experiences, challenges, or secrets to deep connection. In the comments, your story might just inspire someone who is looking for their own true community. Designing your living legacy. There are nights when you lie still in the darkness, asking yourself, if I were gone tomorrow, what would I leave behind for this world? That concern isn't about fearing death, but a deep desire to leave a mark, not just a little success or wealth, but something that truly touches the hearts of others. Have you ever wondered whether the values, experiences, and lessons you've accumulated over half a lifetime will simply fade away, or could become a gift for the next generation? Maybe you felt at times that your life had lost its meaning. When your children grew up, your career plateaued, and everything seemed to drift into quietness. But it is precisely in those moments that the urge to design a living legacy becomes stronger than ever. Look at Maya Angelou, who wrote her final book, Mom and Me and Mom, at nearly 80 years old, still choosing to share her memories, pain, and love with people she'd never met. Or the wave of thousands of middle-aged Americans, stepping into their 50s, starting to write memoirs, create podcasts, mentor young people even though they were previously just ordinary teachers, doctors, or artists. They share stories of failure and life lessons, teach skills, form book clubs, or create art together. These projects are not for show, but a way to continue telling their story, to send a message to the next generation. You can rise from the darkness. You can start over at any age, and you can inspire others without having to be famous. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insolvable. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Legacy is not just the answer to life's dilemmas, but the way you grow beyond them, then pass that strength on to others. It could be a book, a podcast, a mentoring project, or simply the small stories you tell your grandchildren, the life principles you keep in every daily choice. How do you want to start designing your living legacy? Maybe it's as simple as writing a letter to your future self, planning to start a small project to inspire your community, or opening up to mentor someone younger. Choose one thing, no matter how small, and do it each week. You'll discover that the meaning of life isn't just in what's past, but also in the value you're creating, day by day, for this world, and for the generations yet to come. If you recognize yourself somewhere in these 7 signs, understand that this is not the end, just a moment where you pause, look into the river of your soul, and then step forward with new awareness. Rare spiritual power is not meant to make you feel isolated, but is an opportunity for you to actively choose to live authentically, to embrace both the light and darkness within you. Like a lighthouse in the middle of the sea, you don't need to shout for attention, just stand firm and let your inner energy illuminate. The shadow that we do not face will become our fate, Jung reminded us so that each of us would remember. True maturity means daring to look at ourselves in the mirror and not fearing what we see. You are no longer just a choice because you have chosen to be yourself. Keep this conversation with yourself, and if this journey has touched you, share it. Who knows? Maybe you too will be a light for someone else who is feeling lost. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join me as we continue this journey into the world of psychology, where the exploration of the self still has a long way to go.